Hello, and welcome to another edition of Better Informed Housing. My name is Zach Meyer, and I'm hosting this February edition of our show. Better Informed Housing has devoted its energy to passionately educating and informing communities on their real estate rights. Many of the communities are politically underrepresented members of our city. The city of Chicago currently has over 100,000 vacant properties. These zombie properties attract crime, invite danger, drive down neighborhood values, and push out local families. Better Informed Housing has devoted itself to seek change in that. That's why we bring you a monthly topic to better inform you of housing rights and issues. I'm here tonight with Carl Dreyer, who's an attorney for the better part of 2 decades, who's worked in various legal capacities, and is here tonight to talk about building violations. The weather itself is improving, and people are once again finding themselves walking out of their back porches, which is a common building violation. Welcome, Carl. How are you tonight?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Zach.
Before I start our interview, I want to let you know that you can call in to our show, as well as if you want to reach out to Better Informed Housing, you can call Better Informed Housing at 312-533-2688. An email at neighbors@betterinformed.org, and our website is betterinformed.org. We provide education and information to communities about real estate. You can visit our website, which is here, and you can call into our show at any time at 312-738-1060. So, Carl, why is it such a common occurrence for there to be a porch violation?
Well, because throughout the city, we have porches that are exposed to the elements all year round.
Okay.
And especially after you go through a winter where you've got extremes like we have.
Okay.
You go from really cold to really warm and back and forth. It definitely causes a lot of wear and tear. And that can certainly cause porches to degrade to such a degree that they could even be separated from the building that they're attached to. And of course, the city of Chicago is always on the lookout to make sure that porches continue to be in safe condition, and they send all kinds of inspectors out to take a look at that.
Okay. When does typically a violation occur, and how is it discovered? How do the city inspectors just know that that particular porch has a building violation?
Well, there's sometimes you have people reporting certain conditions, but other times you'll have the city just sending inspectors around kind of on regular rounds in different neighborhoods to see if there are any porches that appear to be either dilapidated or if they're starting to sag, if they're missing railings. They look for those things, and they'll go through alleyways and see if they can find any types of violations. And then when they do, they will report that, and they will then send the owner notice of the violation.
Okay. Is the city kind of more vigilant on this because of kind of that great porch collapse back in 2003? Is that why they are a little bit more proactive?
Oh, definitely.
Has there been like a shift in the way that they kind of seek to check in and make sure that everything's properly inspected because of that kind of collapse itself?
Yes, I mean in the last few years, the city has definitely been a lot more aggressive in terms of looking for porch violations because of that incident.
Okay. So, what does that violation usually detail? Is it the structure of the porch itself? Is it the railings? Is it the stairs? What kind of parts of the porch cause the violation? How, or is it just what causes the city to kind of go after it?
Well, it could be something as minor as there not being a handrail where there should be, or it could be something as major as the city noticing that the entire structure is beginning to separate from the building or starting to collapse, such as missing boards on the floor level.
Okay. Okay. If I receive a complaint for a building violation, what do I do? Where can I go?
Well, you certainly can call an attorney, and I certainly recommend that you do, because attorneys are very familiar with the process, and finding yourself a good housing violation attorney will allow you to be more knowledgeable about what's going on because they will fill you in. But also the lawyer will be familiar with the city attorneys, and also will be more familiar with the judges.
Okay. So you should pick a lawyer that definitely specializes in building violation court to begin with, and not more of a general practice one because their kind of familiarity with the system itself?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
What if I can't necessarily afford a lawyer? Can I do it on my own? Or why is it important to maybe pay for a lawyer in building violation cases such as porch violations?
Well, you could certainly do it on your own, but it's definitely better to get a lawyer because then you don't have to appear in court. Your lawyer is going to appear in court for you because otherwise you have to take time out from your own job without pay and stand in a long line because there's always a long line at the building violations courts.
Okay. Who are kind of the key players when it comes to building violation cases? If I had a building violation myself, would it just be the judge? Or would it be the city itself? How does the city appear? Like, who necessarily appears for the city? How do building violation cases really work?
Well, you're given a summons and complaint from the city of Chicago. And it orders you to show up on a specific day in court. And when you appear there, you will first meet with what's called the Corporation Counsel. And that is an attorney who represents the city of Chicago. And that attorney will typically speak with you about the violation, and they will have an inspector for the city who went to your building and detailed what they found and what the violation was and what needs to be fixed. And then after that, you would appear before the judge.
So is it ultimately the city itself who decides, or the judge? How does the judge play the role in it?
Well, the judge makes the ultimate decision, but typically what happens in the building violations courts is that the city will look to get an agreement with you first. And so they'll say, well, here's the violation. The inspector says that these certain things need to be done. So you can get those things done, and we'll get the inspector out again. And if they determine that what needs to be corrected was done satisfactorily, then when you return to court, the Corporation Counsel would then ask for the case to be dismissed. But of course, very often the building code inspector will find some other type of violation, and often you'll have to go to court again to deal with whatever remaining issues that they find.
So it's not typically the city will file a complaint against me and I would appear just once in court. It could be a long, arduous process?
It certainly could, yes.
Do they typically continue the dates to maybe like a month out? Or is it all necessarily, do they give me enough time to fix porch violations?
Well, definitely. The city is willing to give you 60, 90, or even 120 days, depending on how big the violation is. If the city inspector finds that the structure itself has to be rebuilt, then of course they will give you a lot more time because what you'll need to do is you'll need to apply for a permit with the city. You'll have to get an architect who will have to get his plans approved with the city. And that, of course, would take several appearances before the court to first be able to get the permits and get the architectural plans approved, and then to proceed with going through the process to actually rebuild the structure.
So when you say we have to get a permit, in these cases, if you'd have a building violation, porch violation case, where would you kind of seek out an architect? Would you maybe ask your lawyer to kind of for that, or would you kind of look online, or would you be able to draw up some of the plans yourself, or do you need a certified architect?
Well, you have to have a certified architect. I mean, that's very necessary. Of course, getting a lawyer, they often know architects, but of course you're always free to go online and look for an architect who is properly certified that will get their plans to be approved by the city.
For our viewers who are just joining us, we want to let you know that we are a Better Informed Housing Corporation here bringing you housing topics such as building violations tonight. We can be reached offline after the show at 312-533-2688. The email is neighbors@betterinformed.org. Our website is betterinformed.org. You can contact us on our website itself and get in touch with Better Informed Housing Corporation. Now, after all of that, for building violations, someone needs to get an architect, they need to get a permit. What if they find out that the whole entire porch itself doesn't work? Is it possible that you might lose your back porch because the violations are so extensive and you might have to start from scratch?
Well, that has happened.
Okay.
So it is possible that you might have to take the whole thing down and start from scratch, and that if that's what the city requires, then that's what you'd have to do in order to get it up to code and get the violation finally dismissed.
Okay.
But in order to do that, of course, you'd have to go through the process, and then you get a final inspection from the City of Chicago inspector. And once they sign off on the approval of the final inspection, then you can go back to court and get a dismissal.
Okay. Is it possible, though, that the city might think I did everything right, but then the judge will still say there might need to be an additional step, or the city could get it wrong?
Well, certainly. That's happened before. It happened to me in one instance.
Okay.
I had a client whose porch was rebuilt, and it was approved by the city. I had the signature and the signed document, and when I went back to court, the inspector found that it wasn't fully in compliance and that there was one joint that had to be put back on that supposedly the contractor put on properly, but sometimes the inspectors can be wrong. They could miss something, and then that needs to be fixed. But it's all part of the process.
Okay. So it definitely seems like it's about forming a good team, from your contractor to pulling a permit to finding a good architect, and maybe setting yourself up more on the front end so you won't have these porch violations later on.
Right. Exactly. I mean, it's very important to have your team together, and one of the best ways to get your team together is to get yourself a lawyer who handles this type of work, that would know individuals to contact.
Okay. Once in full compliance, does everyone have to go back to court? What if? How close does it typically range from the inspection to the court time itself?
Well, the inspection...
Oh, wait, it looks like we have a call.
Oh, we do.
So let's take the call.
Okay.
Hello? Caller?
Yes, good evening. I tuned in late to your program, but it's very interesting. I had an experience, without going into great detail, with one of these city building inspectors, and he was a certified jerk is what he was. He was from Indiana. He had some political clout. He didn't know up from down, and he wrote a list of violations a mile long. And I asked him, what is your background? And he just copped an attitude with me. I think an alderman should propose an ordinance that would post the information on all of these inspectors, because again, there might be some very good ones, as in any field. But in this particular instance, this guy got the job later in life. He wasn't a young kid. He had no background. He admitted it in a casual conversation, but he copped an attitude about anybody questioning his credentials to it. And again, I'd love to be able to show up at some of these people's houses and go over their residences with a fine-tooth comb. It's a nightmarish situation. And again, I think an ordinance needs to be passed that their qualifications should be posted so they can root out the people that are in there because of their political clout rather than any expertise they bring to the job. Good. I'll get off the line and I'll listen to your comment. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely a problem that a lot of people face. I think every once in a while you'll get an inspector that's just going to try and jerk you around. But one thing I would do if I had a client that had that issue is I would go to the judge and I would say, Your Honor, my client is having a lot of problems with this inspector. The city has lots of different inspectors. I'd like to get a different inspector appointed. And the judge would most likely grant that if that was a problem. But in terms of there being some kind of a policing of these inspectors, that's really something that, I really don't know that's out there. I mean, that'd be something maybe to ask the Better Government Association to look into.
Correct. And I would say definitely too, you can look online at the City of Chicago's website and you can see kind of a complete list of all the city employees themselves. You typically, when you're at court, when you meet with corporation counsel, they give you a list of all the different inspectors along with their phone number and their website itself. And you can see who they are and then who to necessarily contact. So if you do have any issues or questions, you can always call in and see. And as Carl said, definitely speak with the judge themselves. On last week's show, or last month's show, sorry, we had a list of key websites, and I'm actually going to pull it up right here of where you can go to. And you can go to the Cook County Treasurer, the City of Chicago building violations. There's actually a whole entire website where you could look up the building violations itself. So if there was a porch violation, you could type in your address and you could see it at building violations violations /agreement. You could look up your court case itself for the next hearing date at cookcountyclerkofthecourt.org. And additionally, we have the assessor and recorder's websites itself for any of the cases. And if there's any additional calls tonight, we're happy to take any other callers at 312-738-1060. As seen on TV. Additionally, if you'd like to contact us after the show, you can reach us at our website at betterinformed.org, and we're happy to receive your emails and assist you with any of your questions that you have. But now to kind of wrap up on our building violations, once it's in full compliance, how would someone necessarily end the case itself? Does everyone go back to court? Do I have to go to court itself to see if it's dismissed? How does that work?
Well, if you have an attorney, of course, your attorney can go and make sure that the dismissal violation gets. But if you're going pro se, which is on your own without an attorney, then you would have to go to court to ensure that there is a dismissal order entered. You don't want to take the risk that everything is not done. So it's very important to make sure that you get that dismissal order, and that brings the case to an end.
Okay. I know a lot of what we talked about seems daunting, but would you say anyone can go through it and achieve success to fix all their violations and that they shouldn't be afraid of it?
No, they shouldn't be afraid of it.
Okay.
It's just that it's always better to get an attorney because an attorney is familiar with the process and can definitely save you a lot of time having to go to court, most likely several times, in order to be able to ensure that the violation is fixed and that the case gets dismissed.
Great. So we have a little additional time, Carl. So wanted to talk to you kind of about different venues. From what I've heard, you take and work on cases from Cook County and across the Keller counties. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. But what I've just figured out kind of recently, for Cook County, it's not always downtown. I thought it was always at the Daily Center. Where do some of these court cases take place?
Well, you have 6 municipal districts.
6, wow.
So,
okay.
They can, they're all over the Cook County suburbs. So,
okay.
you could end up with a case against you or filing a case in the Skokie courthouse or all the way down in south in Markham.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's also Rolling Meadows and Bridgeview.
Okay.
And Maywood, as well as downtown at the Daily Center. And, very often, clients will live in a certain area and they will have someone file a lawsuit against them that's on the other side of Cook County.
Okay.
And, of course, that seems to be a really big hassle, but, of course, there's a pretty simple solution for that.
Okay.
Which is to appear in court, and when you first appear before the judge, notify them of your residence and have the case transferred to either a municipal district near your residence or to the Daily Center if you live right near the downtown area.
Okay.
And that's a very simple way to save yourself a lot of time and hassle having to go through the traffic, because we all know how bad the traffic is in Chicago.
Exactly. Now, if I live and work downtown, let's say I'm really close to the Daily Center itself. Let's say I can't get my case itself transferred between venues. Would I be able to file documents at the Daily Center itself if I had a case in Rolling Meadows?
No, not anymore. For a while, the Cook County clerk had what was called global filing. So there was a time where you could go to the Daily Center and file something, say, in Rolling Meadows or Markham, and it would be considered filed. But now that we have online filing, which really is only able to be accessed by attorneys, the global filing is gone. So now any individual who's pro se, if their lawsuit is filed at the Rolling Meadows courthouse, they're going to have to go to Rolling Meadows to file any type of a pleading that they need to get in front of the court.
Okay. So is that why it's sometimes better to have an attorney, because additionally they are better skilled at online filing, as well as they're more likely to be in one of these courthouses every week?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because then it's a lot easier when you have an attorney. They can just go online and file whatever needs to be filed. And, of course, that saves the client a lot of time having to physically go to the courthouse.
Okay. Just want to remind all our viewers, before we wrap up our show tonight, where they can go for additional information. We have our key websites, which if you want to go to the building violations website, they can give you some more information on building violations such as porch violations, which we talked about tonight. Additionally, you can go to the Better Informed Housing Corporation website itself, where we provide you information and we post all the videos from each of our shows, and you can reach out to us if you have any questions. Our website again is betterinformed.org. And if you have any final questions and feel like being our last caller of the evening, you can call us at 312-738-1060. Again, tonight's issues were building porch violations, as well as additionally talking about venues for where you can go, and the fact that not all the venues themselves are the same. It's not just the Daily Center downtown, but there's multiple courthouses. Is it always the county that you live in, though, that where your case has to be brought and filed? How does that necessarily work?
Well, not always. I mean, sometimes you have to consider where a transaction occurred.
Okay.
So if you have a contract that was executed in, say, DuPage County, and you're going to file it in Cook County, you could always argue that, well, this was the wrong venue.
Oh,
and
okay.
When you would first appear in court, you can always bring a motion for an improper venue to move the venue from, say, DuPage County to Cook County.
Okay.
There's also a motion called a motion to transfer for forum non-conveniens, which is Latin for the venue is not convenient. However, if you're going to change it just from DuPage County to Cook County, which is about a 30-mile difference, a judge would be pretty unlikely to transfer it just for that basis.
Exactly. Well, I thank you so much for being with us tonight, Carl. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to betterinformed.org, and we thank you for tuning in tonight.